I'm here with Danny of Bury Tomorrow to talk about the upcoming new record, The Seventh Son, out on March 31st on Music for Nations. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for chatting about the album with me. I appreciate it. How are you?
Well, I want to say thank you for you. You have a busy schedule, a lot busier than mine. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about the record. And I want to start off a little bit about the behind the scenes in terms of what got you to this point of having an album that sounds as good as this one does, and where your vocals are absolutely on point. So, what was the inspiration for such a powerful record?
I think it's like it's a multitude of things. I think obviously we've been doing this a little while now. It's like seven albums deep, and 15 years in the game, and so it's that constant strive for, I think, improvement and making sure that we're better and better. And then obviously we had a bit of a change up in our lineup since the last album, and I think we've had all of this time away. We had 2.5 years of not being really in a band. We released Cannibal obviously right at the start of the pandemic, but really from that there was nothing for 2 years. And so I think it was just all of that probably pent up frustration and somewhat anger. But then also, just we wanted to make sure that when we came back, there's so many amazing bands, right, and that are out there at the moment, just absolutely slaying it and just doing incredible things. And from a vocal perspective, it seems like the last 2 to 3 years, like there have been just these amazing artists that just pop onto the scene and absolutely destroy it vocally. And for me, like I always want to be at the level of our peers, at the level of our people that I think and I classify as some of the best in the game. And what a great opportunity and the brand new album to try and do that ourselves, And so yeah, I pushed myself and I carried on practicing and carried on making sure that I was the best I could be. And then here we go. We're here with the seventh son.
So, what do you think defines this album in order to give it its own little unique fingerprint, if you will?
I think we almost didn't define it, which is probably a non-answer, really. Like, with most of the songs that we've done before, or most of the albums, we kind of gone in going, we want to make the best metalcore music we possibly can. And that was what we wanted to do. And we wanted to be the best in our lane. And whilst that's really probably commendable in some accounts, and obviously has pushed us to be one of the bigger metalcore bands, certainly from the UK, like, it also by proxy kind of hems you into just being a metalcore band. And so I think with this record, we knew we were going to be heavy because that's us. We're a heavy band, but we just didn't really give ourselves any restrictions whatsoever. We were just like, we're just going to let the songs take where they go. And if it goes melodic, it goes melodic. If it goes even heavier, it goes even heavier. There's no kind of boundaries to our music in that sense. And one of the aspects that metalcore music gets somewhat a bad name for is formulaic, and we'd fallen into that kind of trap, I think, of verse, chorus, breakdown, chorus, whatever. More choruses the better. And
And the breakdowns too.
yeah, more breakdowns. So let's make the breakdowns like even heavier, and like and that's great, and that serves a really good purpose. And I think for this record, we really wanted to make sure that that was addressed, because people have said that about music. Like, yes, great, Bury Tomorrow, do Bury Tomorrow as best as they can be, but we don't want to be Bury Tomorrow doing Bury Tomorrow. We want Bury Tomorrow being the best possible band they could be. And so there was a lot of that and a lot of just time. Everything was gone over. Like every vocal, every affliction, every synth in the background was just gone over with a minute kind of detail. It's just helped, it just makes it a better record. It makes it much more of a, I don't know, like kind of give a shit record.
Yeah, but that attitude comes across because it's funny that you're saying this because when I was listening to the album, I was like, in a sea of a lot of metalcore bands, this is what I want metalcore to sound like. The way this record came across, because it feels pissed off, it feels organic, but it still feels very introspective at times. So you guys kind of found this nice blend of everything that metalcore has become.
And I really appreciate that, but like genuinely, that it brings a smile to me, because it's important that people get what we were trying to do here, and like, and I suppose some of it also comes from the fact that, as I said before, I've been in this band since I was 16 years old. Like I've been in this band since metalcore was in fashion, then out of fashion, then back in fashion again, and so for me, I have that experience. I understand the scene at a specifically this kind of genre. maybe better than, you know, some of the bands that are kind of coming out now. But you know, it's not to say that they don't make incredible music, because they absolutely do. But maybe that's what that kind of blend is, which is the blend of like nostalgia. You know, we get called a nostalgic band, which literally makes
Which is crazy.
it makes me die inside somewhat. But it's also great, you know, to have be a nostalgic band that kids look up to and new bands look up to, and you know, probably inspired them to make the music they do, but equally still be in the scene and relevant is really cool. You know, there's lots of bands that wouldn't be happy with that, but it is what it is. You know, we're an older band in the scene, and there are some amazing human beings playing metalcore music these days. You know.
The album felt to me very compact, but at the same time very dynamic. So it's not a repetitive record, but at the same time, all the songs kind of feel like they belong together under
Mm.
this big umbrella of this album. How did you guys find the blend, or find a solution to create a record that feels like every track has a sense of purpose within the design of the album, but at the same time, it doesn't become repetitive?
Yeah, I mean, I think our main songwriter, Chris, like he always wanted this album to be like a body of work. And like obviously every album's a body of work, but more so with this record of like being able to put it on like, you know, people do when they listen to vinyl, or like they do when they get their like CD in physical form, and you just put it in and you just go from start to finish and you look through all the artwork, and you can just immerse yourself for an hour of your day just to get into that album. And that's what he wanted. And immediately we were almost going, right, okay, Seventh Son's first, Carcass King's last, like where do all these songs slot in? And from that, we kind of helped us write the process, because we were doing that whilst we were in the studio, which helps you kind of write songs that give you that feel or that push. Like, okay, we need a song that's got a bit more urgency now. Let's put that in. Much like how we do our live set. So if we're, you know, if we're doing a headline set, we'll make sure that we're like, okay, we'll bring it back down here, and then it'll push back up with a heavier song there. We kind of did that with the album on the way through, and also the interludes and the intros, and they all just kind of merge into this like soundscape. And but equally, you know, we write commercial, probably in inverted commas, commercially metal driven songs. You know, we like catchy songs. We like songs that are going to be stuck in someone's head for a long time, because you know we're not a band that's trying to play, you know, the same venues for the rest of our lives. Like our band wants to be one of the biggest bands on the planet. That is our aim. And so, you know, we're not unashamed of saying that. Like we have an aspiration and we want to play to more and more people throughout the world. And so let's write songs that can really do that on a grand scale. And so that's kind of why it's got that feel where you can listen to one of the tracks on their own, but actually when you put them together, they almost like little jigsaw puzzles. Like
Yeah, yeah.
same with, we released Abandon Us, and people, we got a great response, and we kind of knew it would, because we were just really happy. We knew that that song was a bit of a special song, and we put it out. But actually, when you put that into the context of the record, it makes even more sense. So it's almost like, you know, have you ever had it before where you're like, you'll listen to the singles of an album and you'll go over and over and over again, and then you'll go to the album, you'll skip past the single because you're like, oh, I've heard that one loads. And it's like what we wanted to was people to do that with Abandon Us and Bolt Cutter or Heretic. And I've seen your reaction to Heretic, by the way, and it's awesome. And it like they slot it in, and you're like, oh, wait, it makes perfect sense now. And so Heretic being a classic example of that, which is when you listen to it in the record, it changes it from the meaning when you watch the video, you know.
Yeah, and I thought the album was really interesting from that perspective. And that brings me back to my next question. Do you feel like there is one or two songs on this record that kind of become the glue that give you this overall design, that they're really key? Like some of them maybe you could have changed around a little bit, but these ones had to be exactly where they currently are.
Yeah, I mean, I think always the title track, like the first track of the album, is always a staple point. And it's almost like we've always done this. It's kind of been our formula, which is really heavy first song that kind of, or certainly the intro to a heavy song. And it almost sounds like an elongated intro. It's almost not a song. It's almost just like a piece of music that you listen to. Like, so Seventh Son, for example, would never be a single. We'd never put it out, you know, on its own, but it stands really nicely as an intro to an album. And the same as Carcass King. Carcass King was always going to be the end. And what's fun about that song is that I know so many people think that that's going to be the heaviest song on the record. And whilst it is still a heavier song, it's definitely not the heaviest one. So, and then we kind of had little bits like Abandon Us was always going to be where it is. It was always going to punch in when it hits in. But then, other songs, it's kind of, as I said, as it's flowed, we knew we were going to load the first part of the album with things like Begin Again and Bolt Cutter. And we knew we were then going to take it back with things like Heretic, and Recovery and stuff like, and Care later on. I mean, Care is just the last stand for a heavy song. Essentially, it's the most savage, one of the most savage songs on the record. And it's there for a reason, but to pick you back into that moment. But I think more so you writing like couplets. So we knew that certain songs were going to lead into each other and give you that feeling of up and down. And so that's kind of how it kind of came about.
And the overall album has a great sound experience. It really comes across all the energy that you see in the lyrics before you even hear the lyrics. You feel that same energy in the sound. How much of that was the mindset of the band coming off of this pandemic with all that pent up energy, and how much of that is the production behind the album?
I think probably both. I think, and we've got to appreciate the people doing all the production, like Dan Weller, who's our producer, um and Joseph who mixed it. Like it, they're in the same boat as us. They want to, they've had a whole time, not doing what they're doing also. So there's probably that level of showcasing that you're like, this is what we can do, this is what we're about. And so yeah, there's definitely some elements of the pandemic in there, no doubt about it. But I think also the change in our music obviously is in reflection to the change in our lineup. And so, we knew we wanted to push things and be a bit different on this record, and maybe be more visceral in places, but also be more reflective and open to new ideas and new ventures, probably more so than we've ever been. Because if we're not going to do it now, we'll never do it, because we've had all this time off, and then we're changing our lineup. I mean, now's the perfect time just to try things, and enjoy it, and just enjoy making music again.
You mentioned the lineup change. How much of an impact has Tom had on the sound, and then even with you working with you on the vocal side of things?
He is integral. I mean, he is the glue, the walls that hold us up, whatever other analogy I could probably throw in there. Like he's an incredible musician. He can play every instrument in our band. He is a producer in his own right, does all of the electronics in our music, has got an incredible understanding of, vocals in general. He can scream also. I mean, he might replace me one day, to be honest with you. He's that good. But
Let's not get
he
carried away. Come on,
yeah,
like
I mean,
one thing at a time.
he's incredible. And he's a great songwriter, and I think that really, really helps, to come into a band that has been established for a long, long time, 6 albums deep. We have got a long legacy of being a metal band, and to come in and be able to put his stamp immediately into our music. When we released Death, that was his first song in our band, and it's one of the best songs, and probably, I would argue, some people's absolute favorite song out of everything we've ever done. And Tom wrote a lot of that song, including the big vocal hook that everybody loves. And so it shows the power that he's got. You'd worry, wouldn't you, that there'd be a diminishment of kind of potential or ability, really. But I think it's just added to it, and I think him getting stuck in with all the production elements also has just glued it all together. So instead of it sounded like Tom's vocals and electronics on top of our music, it's like, no, this is Bury Tomorrow as a 6-piece now, which is kind of how the units come together.
When it comes to the vocals, his delivery, his tone, his range, how much does that help you on your end to maybe free up things a little bit and be even more organic in your delivery?
Yeah, I mean, what's incredible with Tom is, as I said, he can scream as well. So he can get closer in the sonic spectrum to my vocals than we've ever had before. And so what that then does is create this layered vocal. Instead of it being there's a screaming, there's a singing, there's a screaming, there's a singing, or even there's the singing and screaming together, it almost blends them into a place where you go, wait, was that Tom or was that Dan? And I love that. I think that's a really cool piece of music, because you're not getting distracted by, oh, there's the clean vocalist, or there's the screaming vocalist. Like, you kind of just listen to it as vocals on a track, which was really interesting with things like Heretic, because obviously it's a very back and forth song, but it would have sounded really weird if it was overtly different vocal styles. So he's still got that grit, but he's still up in a tenor range, which is the same as me. And the more and more we're doing, I write melodies for the songs. I wrote Begin Again chorus. And so I record at home and then I send it over to Tom just to make better from a
Mhm.
clean vocalist perspective. And but actually us being able to do that really helps because then we're on the same page. And I think, you know, for Tom, he's also an incredible lyricist. So that just pushes me to be even better at what I do. And it almost frees me up. So I'm not having to think about like, okay, these are another 11 tracks for me to come up with themes and ideas and whatever. He is thoroughly involved in that as well. And so, yeah, I mean, and then it helps me also go really kind of nasty and deep if I need to because my vocal range is really strange. So I have my mid range anyway, but my lows and my highs are what I suppose not known for, but that's what I do. Like my high vocals are my I would say probably the easiest that I do. Heretic being a classic example of that one. Like that's where my range actually sits, but I've always kind of dropped down to kind of fill that void in the middle. And now I don't have to because Tom can kind of blend up to that approach, you know.
And by the way, on Heretic, that when Laws comes in, his introduction to the dude, that's got to go down in history as the best way to come into a track ever.
I
You
kept going back on your reaction. I kept doing it. I kept looking and I loved it. I love when you were just like that bit. I love that bit, and that just made me smile. And I will put it down on record now. Like we absolutely love reaction videos. They're like our favorite. They're the most wholesome and awesome things to watch as a member of a band because it's very rare you get to kind of sit down with other than like your friends and stuff and you put on the record and they go, oh, that's a cool bit. Like that's the only thing I've ever seen that replicates that feeling of like showing your friends like this is the music, and some people are like, oh, that's gross, turn it off. Other people are mainly like, this is sick, and you know that's honestly it is the best content. So please don't ever stop doing them because they do make it when you're doing songs and
No,
putting
man,
it
you guys
out.
keep making music, and my son and I will keep shooting out these videos. So
And what a cool dad you are as well. That's awesome.
so, so it's totally cool by us. But how did the idea to have Laws on the track came about? That was it something that you felt like the song could have really used his style and his
Yeah.
approach?
Yeah, I mean, we're friends. We've been friends with While She Sleeps for a long time. Obviously, we go way back. And so Chris, our guitarist, grew up with While She Sleeps anyway, up in the north. And we actually gave Sleeps some of their first kind of out of Sheffield, I suppose, kind of shows. We did like a Yorkshire tour. And for anybody who doesn't know how big Yorkshire is, it is not very big at all. So to do a tour, you can imagine when this was. It's quite a while away. Knowing how big While She Sleeps are now, it's quite funny to think about it. But we just became really, really good friends with them as peers and contemporaries, and we've maintained that through the years, you know, and both had our respective successes in different ways, and now they've done incredible things. You know, in the UK, we're supporting them again. And they're playing Alexandra Palace, which is a 10,000 capacity venue, you know, and to be a metal band in the UK and playing 10,000 capacity venues is no small feat. That puts them at the second. So it's almost like Architects While She Sleeps, you know, and they asked us to be head support on that tour, which is amazing, you know, again, awesome. And because we're also kind of doing our own thing in a metalcore world. And so this was all kind of going on. And then we were in the studio, and this had all been kind of slightly confirmed, but also chatting about it. And we just thought, like, this is a really brutal track. And Loz is known for his like angry, visceral, hardcore style vocals. And he always has been. And I've always been impressed with Loz. But he's never done a guest vocal ever. And we did not technically want loads of guest vocalists that have done loads of guest vocals because you kind of lose some of that,
Yeah.
like the specialness. Like it's not to say that those vocalists aren't incredible at what they do. That's why people get them on all their songs. But you lose that like uniqueness of like, wow, okay, that's a vocalist I haven't heard do a guest vocal in somebody else's song. Isn't that cool? And Loz just came up and he was so up for it. And the song just again, like we went backwards and forwards with ideas with Matt Sears about what we were going to do for the video. Um, and some of it was like around budget constraints, but it actually worked out massively. We were going to have actors, so we were going to basically not be in the video, and that was going to be acted out. And I'm actually so glad that the kind of budget constraints stopped, so we acted it out because it. I said to Matt, I want this now to be almost like a sit down, which is really funny how you reacted to it and said about the Don sit down. That was the references I gave, which were I want this to be sat down and you have this almost meeting of gang members and
Yeah.
to have go wrong essentially, and it all pops off. And and it just really works vocally because you've got that backwards forwards together, backwards forwards, and it, yeah, it just worked out. And Loz was so cool with it and came down from the north to the south the coldest day. So all of that smoke you see coming out of our mouth, all of that breath, that is all real. I was like -5, -6 outside, and in there was probably well colder than that, but it was horribly cold. And we were filming, and he was there all day for that verse. He was there all day. And I cannot thank him enough. Like, you know, to be that up for it and come down and do it. And yeah, it's just it's a dream come true, really. And it is great. And his vocals fit so perfectly with our music as well. So
Wow, wow. What a story. I mean, that makes the video even more impressive. Let me put it that way. You talked about your vocals. Do you work on them constantly? Is there certain things that you still feel like you want to improve upon or maybe add to?
yeah, all the time, all the time. And I think that evolves with, like, I think just generally you get better at understanding your vocals the more you do it. And like, I know more about my voice now, even since recording the album. Like, I know more about how my voice sits and what I want to do with it. And you know, and it also comes from like the scene, you know, like people like Taylor Suffers and Will Ramos and Joe Bad. Like, these are some of the best vocalists on the planet, right? And they push themselves into different worlds of noises and songs. And I grew up with deathcore and also thing when I was younger. And those vocalists, you know, just unreal in what they can do with their voice. And so for me, I'm always trying to just push myself into the max. So if I can get some horrific lows on there, or I can go as high as I possibly can, I kind of will do. And I've literally just purchased, this is the laptop that I'm actually, why I made reference to being a new laptop, because I've just purchased almost like a my own kind of little studio setup, which means that now I'm going to be demoing vocals all the time, which will only improve my vocals by practicing, you know. And I take care of myself. And it sounds such a cliche to say it, but like, I really take care of my vocals. I warm up all the time. I practice, I learn, you know, and then I learn singing kind of techniques, and then take it from a singing notation all the way up to really heavy vocals, which just helps to kind of you to understand the broad spectrum of the voice. And that's kind of where my learning came from, was like just really understanding how your voice feels, which means that then you can do it every night without a problem, you know. And warm up, don't party, think it's a rock star life. It will not keep your voice. It will make your voice go quicker than the parties will last, that's for sure. And then just practice, and be confident in your own voice, because it's never going to sound like somebody else's. It's going to sound like yours. It would just sound like a version of, you know. So yeah, lots. I was due to do a live actually, and hopefully I get to do it soon with Melissa Cross, who is obviously the queen of scream. And I've done all of Melissa's kind of, I've seen all of Melissa's DVDs, and we've become like quite good friends now, of like talking about online about like stuff. And yeah, and I'm doing a live with her soon where we're going to chat about like proper the mechanics of the voice and how to improve those vocals and stuff. But yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey.
I got one last question for you, and then I have a final remark. So my last question for you is that I know that every band's latest record is their best record ever. That's the cliche. But the question I have for you is this new album the one that best defines the band, not just the present, but the past and perhaps even the future?
I think it could be, yeah. I think it's a really good question, because I think, as you said, everyone's going to say that it's the best music. I think it is the best album we've ever done. Of course I do, because I'm promoting it as the best album that we've ever done. But I do think there's a level of nostalgia in that album which nods to the eras of this band as we've gone through. Obviously, it doesn't sound the same as what we've done before. That it would never would. And that album that some people who maybe don't like our new style chase would never have come to fruition. It would have never happened. So it's almost like people need to kind of make peace with, if they like the old era of Buried Tomorrow, then continue to listen to the old era of Buried Tomorrow. That's absolutely fine by me. However, got to kind of make peace with old era, new era was never going to be. So this new era is the only form of Buried Tomorrow that people would have had. So it's kind of a bit of a, we're doing the best we possibly can, and we are also striving forward to be the best, a better band than we've ever been, which I think we are somewhat succeeding at, which is great, and so yeah, I think it represents our band as a whole. And the band is much bigger than the sum of its parts. Our band has been a band for a long time and will continue to be for a long time also.
Well, Danny, thank you very much for your time. Before we go, I just want to say that I already marked it on my calendar. You guys are going to be playing in Toronto May 16th.
Yes, we
It's a
are.
killer lineup. Myself and my kid will be at the show, so we'll come by to say hi to you guys.
I cannot wait to see you there. It's going to be awesome, and
I'll
Canada's
be
going to be
there. I'll
great.
be there. I know people are going to say I'm too old to be at the show because I've gotten there before. People tell me I'm too old to listen to metalcore and deathcore, but I don't give a shit. I'm going to be there with.
You're never too
Uh,
old, and otherwise people will start saying we're too old to be playing metalcore. To be honest with you, so,
you
I
never know.
appreciate
Crazy people say crazy things on the internet. So
they do.
I'll see you guys in Toronto May 16th. I'm looking forward to that show because I love this record. I honestly think this is your best record to date. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in Toronto, and I'll come to say hi and get a selfie with you guys.
Yeah, please do, and thank you so much for your ongoing support. I really, really appreciate it, and keep reacting. It's awesome. So, yeah, see you in Toronto.
See you in Toronto, man. Take care. All the best.
Thank you so much. See you soon.